Welcome back to another episode of Dear FoundHer. I love today's conversation for so many reasons, 3 of them being, number 1, our guest is a founder who is also a new mom, wearing all of the hats to make it all work every single day. Number 2, today's guest is our first guest with a company in the cannabis industry. And number 3, today's episode is our last new interview episode of 2023. It's been a wild and incredible year here at Dear FoundHer, and I cannot wait for you to see what's in store for next year. So buckle up. Welcome back to another episode of Dear FoundHer. I'm really excited about today's guest because we actually have not had anyone in the cannabis category at all on the show yet. So I'm so excited that Jenna Goldring is here. She is the founder and CEO of the High Confectionary. She is also a new mom, and I'm so excited to dive into her story. So Jenna, welcome.
Thanks so much. I'm excited to be on the podcast.
So tell us your story. How did you start your company? Tell us about your company. Give us the goods.
Yeah. Okay. So I'll kind of give you the interesting overview part of it. But I was working in ad sales for about 10 years, and I got recruited to go work in ad sales, targeting actually cannabis companies in highly regulated industries. And I grew up in Los Angeles, so I'm not a big drinker, for better or for worse. I had like 4 years in college where I was. And then after that, alcohol, besides red wine, doesn't really like sit with me. So I've always been a big cannabis user since, high school through college into my adult life. But I have an extremely low tolerance. And, everyone always said to me, well, the more you take it, like your tolerance is going to go up. And I never found that to be true. And so when I was working on the professional side, working with all these brands, dispensaries, all the way from like the publicly traded cannabis companies to mom and pop, I was going and buying products that had to be altered to kind of like fit my needs. So edibles specifically is what I enjoy the most. And I would have to buy them and cut them up and be like, all right, I don't want to be glued to my couch for 5 hours or have a panic attack, which a lot of people have where, you're like in your head being like, if I stop thinking about breathing, like, am I going to stop breathing? And I'd had so many bad experiences with this like kind of guessing game of like, all right, I'm taking this 10 milligram edible, which for me is a shit ton, and I'm cutting it up and I have things to do. I have to work, or I just want to take the edge off. And now I have a baby. Like I can't afford that kind of experience of not knowing, the outcome. And there were no products on the market kind of targeting consumers like me that had low tolerances. I need to be in control. Like I can't, there's sometimes where I want to blow off steam and have like a crazy night, but there weren't very low dose products on the market. And the more I like researched it on the professional side, I understood that like their goal was really just to target consumers that were already into cannabis and already taking these products. And the history of the market has been like, the typical like stoner persona. And that's who they were going after, because that at the time was where the money was. And I thought of this idea of like, let's make a low dose sessionable product that if I want to have more than one, I can, but I can really control the outcome of how I want to feel. And so I started telling a few people this idea, and everyone would come back with a story of, yeah, one time I ate a edible, or one time I had a brownie, or one time and had a similar experience. And I had a few people that were like, hey, if you go and make this and figure out how to do this, I'll be your first check. And I think that's when it became like really interesting. I'm like, holy shit, like, I'm onto something here. And the original idea was just something that I needed. And I sometimes think like that's where the best ideas come from. So I said, all right. And I put a deck together and went out and raised money, and ended up raising enough money where I left my job and went to go do this full time. I think a lot of other founders who kind of start that way can relate to like, I have this job, I'm making a lot of money, I'm doing really well, I've been in this industry forever. And like, now I'm going to jump ship and kind of take a leap of faith on something that is going to be arguably like 10 times more work and not proven, and bet on yourself. But it was really the best thing I ever did. So I left and I went into this full time.
So tell us what the High Confectionary is.
Yeah. So the High Confectionary, it's really a low dose edible brand. So typically low dose has been 2 to 5 milligrams. And I will tell you, if you've never taken a 5 milligram gummy, it is not low dose for most people that are probably like you, like me at least. And I'm assuming like you too, that like aren't trying, always taking these products, don't have the legacy of like taking them, like you will get fucked up from that. And so it's crazy to me that in the industry is still considered low dose. So all of our products are actually 1 milligram. The math is very easy. So you take one, you've had one, you take two, you've had two. And they're designed to be like sessionable and snackable. And I use them, sometimes when I need to just take the anxiety off because I have a really, intense meeting with something that I'm nervous about, I can take one and I'm not actually high. It kind of functions as a way of like cutting your anxiety, but I'm a super type A like person. I don't like to feel out of control. And then other times I'm going out with friends, I'm having a glass of wine, I take like 2 or 3 and it kind of has a different result. We've created a portfolio of products. So we have some for going out. We have some for sleep. We have some for anxiety. We're working on one for actually like sex. Which is going to be a fun one. But the idea around it is like build your own buzz, like control your own destiny. And my goal is like, I don't want people to be scared of cannabis and THC and all of these things that get historically have a lot of stigma attached to them. And so, look at me, like I'm a mom, I'm a founder, I have a lot of shit going on, but I still, this product allows me to like have all of that, but I need something sometimes to kind of take the edge off and an alternative to alcohol and being hungover. So that's kind of the 101 on the company.
So my first thing I want to ask you is, what was the moment that you knew you wanted to quit your corporate job? And I asked that and I want to kind of go back there because I think there are a lot of founders who are listening who are straddling both and who are side hustling and they don't know when that right moment is or if there is a right moment and, what was going through your head in that moment?
Yeah. I mean, I don't even think there is like a right moment per se. I really think that for me personally, it's something I always knew that I can't work for other people. Like every time I would be at a company, I would exceed and I got bored and I got checked out. And I think I was always looking to kind of do something myself. And this kind of fell into my lap just based on like the industry I was in, what I was doing personally. I think the aha moment for me was when I had someone say, all right, I'll actually write you a check, because I had this moral kind of dilemma of like, I don't want to raise money from people. And I was leading a team at my other job. And you can't do both. Like I tried to do both for a week and my husband was like, you have to quit. Like you can't do this. Like I was up all night. I felt like I was not doing well at my job and not, giving it my all there. And then I had people that were betting on me. And I think it was really important. Like if other people are betting with their money, like you have to bet on yourself. So for me, that was the moment where I was like, all right, I'm out. And I was lucky that I had had a successful career previously. So I had some like reserves that allowed me to do it. I wish I did it when I was younger. I think like that's a regret of mine. I'm not that old, but I have a kid now and we can get into that. But I think there's no right moment. I think when you feel something inside of you that's like, I want to go do this. I believe in this. I know I can do it. And even if you fail, like you're going to learn so much in the process. You got to just bet on yourself. I mean, that's what everyone else does.
So I want to talk about the product, like the actual product, because you came from this ad sales background and you know how that works. And I'm assuming a lot about marketing because most people in ad sales are marketers too.
Yeah.
And it seems to be that you were working in the cannabis industry as it was becoming legal. So you've been around for a while to know a lot that goes on there because there's a lot, and we can get into kind of like the marketing as well. It's very different.
Yeah.
But
a lot of compliance.
The product is very different.
Oh yeah. I had transparently, I was like, I literally have to create not only a product, something people are going to eat. So it's like, it's not just like a CPG good that like you could like a book or something, or like ceramics, like people are eating this. So there's a lot of stuff that goes into it. And I actually get asked that a lot because that wasn't my background. Funny enough, in college, I actually studied agriculture and food production. I didn't end up I was in ad sales for 10 years. That has nothing to do with that. I didn't end up doing it, but I knew a lot about it from where I studied and what I studied in school. And I was very passionate about like what goes into your body and not having bad ingredients, especially something you might eat a lot of. But honestly, I just figured it out. Like I went on Google, I talked to people that I knew that had produced like food and beverage products in CPG. I had to learn like what a co-packer is, what a distributor is, like how to create an entire supply chain. And then in the cannabis and hemp industry, there's also compliance. So there's
that was going to be my next question.
It's insane. Like it's actually so complicated. Like, you know, we actually play, now we're in hemp, which I'll explain kind of the difference because people get confused by it all the time. But we were in cannabis for a year, strictly cannabis, and every state has different laws. So if you want to be in California, your product has to, you know, and your packaging, like it has to satisfy like this set of laws. If you want to be in Ohio, you know, it just turned recreational, but it was medical, it's different. And so that's extremely complex. It's not as simple as having one manufacturer, one distributor, and you can kind of sell anywhere. And so it was a lot of just networking. It was a lot of me being like, here's what I want. What are the pieces that make this up? And like, how do I go find them? The internet is an amazing tool. You can find anything on it. And I think people forget that. So I watched a lot of YouTube videos. I tasted a ton of products. I researched who made those products. And I found, you know, my suppliers, and it was really just like a lot of research, due diligence, and networking.
What year was this? I should have asked you that earlier. I just want to get a time frame.
Yeah. So we launched the company in 2021. I raised money previously, but I would say we were like officially in stores like mid 2021. We recently pivoted from cannabis to hemp, and I can definitely dive into like what the hell that is.
Tell us what that is.
Yeah. So cannabis and hemp are like two classifications for virtually the same thing. A cannabis plant, like the chemical makeup, has much more THC, which is what gets you, you know, feeling something. A hemp plant has more CBD, but it still has THC, and vice versa. So traditionally, the cannabis market, when you think about like going into a dispensary, right, buying something, that all the active ingredients, so the THC, the CBD, is sourced from a cannabis plant. Now, that is state by state regulated, right? So around cannabis, there's, you know, you have to understand the laws in the state, and it's federally illegal still, but it's legal because we know how like the government works. So hemp is different. It's actually in the 2018 Farm Bill, it became legal to source THC from hemp plants if the plant itself has under a specific concentration of THC. So you have to have the paperwork for that. And then your end product is under that same concentration. And so as a low dose product, it was awesome for me because my products didn't have to change to be hemp derived. If you tasted my cannabis product and my hemp product, they're exactly the same thing. The difference is that I can actually ship my hemp product direct to consumer. And so what that did is completely pivoted my business from having to be a wholesale business into these dispensaries, which was extremely political. There's not a lot of women. It's a very male dominated space. They only care about products that are like high dose, because that's, you know, what the people wanted in these legacy markets, to D2C, where I can now own my end consumer. I can make way more margin than I was making because I'm not a wholesale business anymore. I can, I'm the one communicating what the brand is. I'm not relying on other stores and sellers within the stores to do that. And I'm able to deliver the same product to consumers that they were getting in stores. And so we recently did that.
Do you have both now or just the hemp?
So we had both for a little bit, and I actually made the decision in August to turn off the cannabis. And there's a lot of reasons for that. Like the cannabis market in general is kind of a dumpster fire in certain states. It's so super competitive. You're heavily taxed. The dispensaries are really hard to work with. A lot of them started to white label product. So it's a harder space. We had a lot of success in California. Like we were in awesome stores. Our products sold out in 2 weeks when we launched. Like it was, we could have stayed in there, but I wanted to bet on the D2C business. I just think it's it's how you build a brand. And we're going to be in retail stores that sell hemp. So it's not to say that we're not in stores anymore. We're working on some deals with stores, but the types of stores I can be in are like health and wellness centers. I can be in like workout studios. Like it's not limited to like a liquor equivalent to what a liquor store is. Imagine when you can go to like a cute store and they sell like nice bottles of wine along with home goods, right? Like I can be in more curated stores that actually are more aligned with my audience, which are again, not these legacy kind of heavy hitter consumers, but like everyone else who is scared to try cannabis, had a bad experience, needs more control, like has other shit going on. And so I bet on that. And we launched our website officially in September. So it's very new.
How have you used your background in ad sales to really go out and find this customer? Because there takes some education too, right? Like,
yeah, it's a lot of it. I mean, I think it's a ton of education. And I will also say like building a brand is very different than it was, 10, 15 years ago in ad sales. And I was in programmatic. So it's a whole different kind of ball game. Now there's, influencer marketing is huge. Being at events and experiential marketing is huge. Brand partnerships are huge. And that's stuff that I actually like didn't have, I did some brand partnerships, but that wasn't really my background. I was in like a crazy, like digital background. And the funny thing about that is there's so many restrictions around what you can and can't advertise, worse than alcohol. I worked on alcohol brands, so I was familiar with like, 21 plus and like some of the things there. But this is even more like, we recently launched Meta ads, right, on Instagram and Facebook, and Meta blocked our domain because they think we're doing something illegal, but we're not. So we got it unblocked, but like that took 3 weeks because they don't understand this distinction that hemp is actually federally legal. It's not cannabis. And so I'm learning a ton around, that piece of it. On the digital side. And then I actually brought on my sister who is, her daytime job is like brand partnerships and she's a killer in that. So she's been consulting me on that. I brought in this awesome guy, Ben, who, is like a young, hungry graduate who's in social media and he crushes it. And so I've had to learn a lot about that side of it. The digital side, the programmatic side, I could talk to you about for an hour, whether I think that actually works or not. So, but yeah, it's been a lot of learning for me. And I'm not I'll admit there's areas that I'm not an expert in, and I've had to like hire people who are and kind of learn from them on how to do that.
So that leads me to my next question is you talked about bringing in certain people. What does your team look like? Like who is doing this business with you?
Yeah. So, my partner, Tim, Tim and Nicole have been with me since the beginning. So Nicole, I'll start with her. She's our lawyer. Which when you're in this kind of industry, like we needed a full-time lawyer because every single thing I do has to be checked with compliance, even advertising. So the types of ads, what I'm saying, influencer marketing, what they're saying, what they can't say, like, so it doesn't get flagged. It's crazy. So we needed someone full-time who can kind of check everything that we do. I raised money, like we don't want to break any laws. There's so many companies in this space that are doing so much illegal shit. And they continue to do it because they haven't gotten sued. No one's gotten sued. There's no precedent. So even when states pass laws, there's been no crackdown. So people are making a shit ton of money, but they're not doing it legally. And I'm very much like, I'm not doing that. Like I'm doing everything by the book. Tim has been with me too since the beginning. So he's operations, right? So he really works with our co-packer on formulations, distributions. He's also a coder. So he codes stuff for our website. Like he's kind of a jack of all trades, but really handles like the entire supply chain, making sure like the product is created. We have all the supplies. It's, everything's kind of, our website's working properly, things like that. My sister, who I kind of touched on, Ben, we have Gianna, who obviously set this up, who's kind of doing our PR. And then I hire like a lot of contract workers as well who specialize in certain aspects. So influencer marketing is someone I just brought on who's like super connected in that space. I have a lot of connections in that space too, but like my day is packed, as you can imagine. So I need people that are really, really good at like one thing. And then when you kind of piece that all together, you have an awesome team.
How has your company grown since you started it? I know we're not going to talk about numbers and you don't have to, but I just want to like paint a picture for everyone listening. I mean, it hasn't been that long. It's only been a couple of years. So it's
been interesting. We obviously pivoted, right? So we did this huge kind of bet and pivot recently. We were growing well in California. So I would say like month over month, we were making, double what we were making the month before. We turned that off and now we are only D2C, and it's been great. Like, I would say that we have the cool statistic that we have right now is we've had a 38% like return rate of new customers, about like 2 weeks to 3 weeks after they buy. And if you notice how our stuff is packaged, you actually get a few packs when you purchase a box. So it's not like a one-time use thing. So that's great. We've gotten a lot of emails of people being like, I've had nerve pain, nothing worked. Like this solved my issue. Or like my mom's never tried an edible and like I got her to have one. She loved it and she just ordered them. So that has been like really cool to see that like I spent a year developing the actual gummies. I cared a lot about them being vegan. I cared a lot about them having not artificial stuff in them, like Blue Dye 5. I wanted them to be flavored with real fruits. They're colored with like turmeric and beet extract. So they're not bad, there's sugar in it, but like jury's out whether artificial sweeteners are worse for you or not. I think they are. So I prefer real sugar. But I spent a year of the company was that, right? And then it was this kind of trying the traditional cannabis market and then launching our D2C. And so that's been great. We have a hotel that's about to put our product in their gift shops. That's a really interesting thing to me. I talked earlier about like the types of places that we can sell. And then we're working on a deal with one of the largest retailers for hemp, like in the country. Crossing my fingers, I'll know by the end of the week if that's done. So things like that. And it's been really exciting, and we've seen revenue grow month over month. So we have more new customers, we have more returning customers, and the numbers are going in the right direction. So that's always great to see.
What's the end game for you? Like, do you want to hold on to it? Do you want to sell it? What do you?
I want to sell it. I want to sell it, and I think that I want to sell it to another company in this space. That's a really interesting thing. Like we saw a lot of the really big players on the cannabis side, like the big publicly traded companies, trying to like have these teams where they like spin out brands, and if you look at some of the news that has come out recently, a lot of them have like fired those teams, and they're down to like one person. And I think there's going to be a shift in the industry where these guys are going to realize like we're not actually like good at building brands. Like we should just go buy brands. And so I think that wave of things is going to happen in the next like 2 to 3 years. And I want to be set up to be acquired of them, especially low dose. Like a lot of these companies don't have low dose portfolios. And so setting myself up for that, I think part of it is like, I love building things. Like I've worked at startups my whole career. Some were successful, some we'll see. But I want to build something else. So that's why I would love to kind of sell this and then help other founders or start another thing.
The most amazing thing about your story is the fact that you realized that there was this big void in the market, and it was because of your own use, and you took it by the reins and you have built this amazing brand. I mean, it's really cool to hear.
Thanks. Yeah, it's funny. My dad always said this thing to me as a kid that was like, someone's got to do it. Might as well be you. And it really did stick with me like my whole life, because you look at all these people who are super successful and like, yes, some are smarter and more educated and had more connections than me, but like they really just went out and did it. Like they just did it. And I think like there's a million ideas and there's not many people that actually take the jump to go do them. So like, I always have respect for people, and, whether I'm super successful or I fail, like you learn so much. And like, I think that I kind of thought about that when I was contemplating doing this. Like, all right, I don't know how to make a food product, but like someone does. And like, I can be that person too. And, yeah. So that's like something I always say in my head with everything. And I think I've also realized like you can figure out anything. Like there's shit that I have no idea how to do that I'm like Shopify, coding, URL, like all this shit. I'm like, I know how to do that now. I didn't know how to do that last month. And so if you have that attitude of like, I'm not an expert in everything, but I can learn it and I can talk to people who know it, like you can do it.
I couldn't agree with you more. So,
Yeah.
and that's why you see so many of the successful brands that we've had here start with someone who has an idea and they don't know what the fuck they're doing.
Yeah.
So, and then they just do it.
Yeah.
Now I want to shift gears for a second because you told me before we got on that you have a baby. So congratulations.
Thanks.
I know you have a son.
Yeah.
And I know it is really hard. I know from personal experience, it is really hard to build a brand and grow a business when you have a baby at home. So how are you managing this? How are you finding this?
Yeah.
I mean, I'd love for you to talk a little bit about this because you're right. You told me not enough people talk about it, and that is the truth.
Yeah. I would say I'm very passionate about this category, as you'll see, but I think as a young girl, I was kind of fed a load of crap of you can do everything. We can do it all. We can have the career and be the best mom ever. And then I had a baby and I realized that's just not fucking true. You can do a little bit of it all, but I am always sacrificing something one way or the other, right? It's an hour I take to spend with my son during the day is an hour I'm not working. And so it's not to say I can't do it all, but it's you have to balance. And
I like to say you can do it all, but not at the same time.
You could do it all, but not at the same time. And you have to stay up later and wake up earlier. That's something, else I'll say. I think it's a work in progress for me. I was breastfeeding for 6 months. I'm not sure if you did that, but that is really hard and it's very demanding on your body and it mentally kind of fucks with you. And I was literally on calls, pumping with my portable pump on, but you can't see because it's only neck up on the video chat. And so it was a lot of that. I think that I did take some time off, which I had to recover from birth and just the emotional shift and being responsible for this tiny human. I think, now he's almost 9 months. I'm in more of a groove. I got some help. I definitely carve out an hour every day to feed him his lunch or take him to his class or go on a walk. I always am there for his bath time. When I don't have, something at night, I try to wake up earlier to do some work. Sometimes I'm up before he is, but I would say it's really a work in progress. I'm figuring it out as I go. And it was kind of this shift of my company to this point, was the most important thing to me. And it was my baby, for lack of better words. And then I got pregnant and I was very sick, actually, in the beginning of my pregnancy, very sick for way too long. And I was so nauseous and I couldn't join video calls. So I was taking all my calls on audio and I hadn't told anyone I was pregnant. So it's kind of that is even a weird thing. I was so nervous to tell my investors I was pregnant because I feel there's just this energy around women get pregnant and then they don't take their job seriously anymore. And they fall out of the workplace. And
what happened when you did tell them? And there's a reason I'm asking and I'm going to tell you after.
Yeah. I mean, it was opposite of what I thought. So people were so supportive and we're so happy for you. And especially the ones that have kids, they get it, they understand. But it's my first child. So I didn't really know. And it's funny. I actually did have someone say to me recently, oh, don't put female founded in your deck. It's going to work against you. And so I'm just saying that does exist still, it's not, I think it's getting better, but there are people that are still like that.
You being afraid to tell your investors that you're pregnant is just, it's an indicator of where we are still as a society.
100%.
I mean, you were not afraid necessarily for you, you were just, it's a societal norm
perception
that needs to go away,
Yeah.
I asked you that because I had a conversation on the podcast with Joanna Griffin, who is the founder of Nix. And she closed $100 million, over $100 million deal.
Yeah.
While she was pregnant. And she said, she laid it out and basically said, anyone who doubts that I can run this business as a mom or while pregnant doesn't get to invest.
Good for her.
And it was a very public thing that she said.
Yeah.
That. And so
I love that. And I think I wasn't as brave, honestly, I was nervous. So, it ended up being fine. And now I'm I've gone such a 180 from that where I'm I'm a mom, I can run a business, I can do it. It doesn't mean that I'm working less, or I'm actually working twice as hard, I would say, because I feel I'm just in go mode all the time. I like can't turn it off.
I always say like, if you need to get anything done, just find a busy mom because they know how to manage and balance and multitask better than anyone.
Oh yeah, you have to. And I think it's like, now it's my challenge is like time for me. Like I don't take any time for myself. And so
how
that's
do you
the balance.
work that in?
I mean, I need to do it more, but, I try to meet friends at night, like, like that kind of thing. But like, I haven't had a manicure in a year. Like, truthfully, it's hard. It's really hard because you learn as a mom that like everything else is first and you're kind of the back seat. And I think like, I'm still working on that. I need to do a better job of it.
That's a work in progress. I think that it's very hard to work on yourself and give yourself grace when you are a new mom. I mean, you are still a new mom, and it probably wasn't until my kids were like in elementary school that I was like, oh, I can like take a minute to go for a manicure, or, oh, I can do this. And it takes time. And while that seems far off for you right now, it's not. And it goes by so fast. And I don't mean to sound so cliche, but it does. But like, there really is this short period of time where like, you do take the back seat. And of course, as a founder, you're really going to take the back
because
seat.
it's like any free time. It's like, all right, my kid's sleeping. Now I have to answer the 20 emails I didn't 100%. Get to, instead of like taking a nice bath and like, it's just, I don't have time. So I know, and I love it. I'm not complaining. I think being a mom is the best thing ever. I wouldn't trade it for the world. And I love my son and I like adore him. But it's a shift, right? It's a change. Like we're used to in our 20s or, our whole life, like before you have a kid, it's like, what do you want to do? Like, you don't have to think about anything else. I have a dog, but like, even that's not the same,
Not the same.
Yeah.
Not the same. What's the legacy you want to leave your son?
Like take risks on like bet on yourself and take risks, like informed risks. But like, I think that I went to like a very interesting high school where it was extremely entrepreneurial, like actually more so than where I went to college. And they taught, an interesting way of looking at the world and thinking and to kind of question things and like poke holes and like find, and I like that mentality. I think like that's something I really want to pass on to him is like, just because something's a way it is, doesn't mean it should be that way. Or it doesn't mean that, there's not an idea of how to make it better. And if you think of it, go try to do it.
I love that. So I'm going to ask you two questions. Normally I wrap up with one, but I'm going to ask two because I'm going to separate it.
Yeah.
The first one I want to ask you is, what would be 3 pieces of advice you would give a founder who is a mom or about to become a mom?
Yeah. Call me. Honestly, I would say talk to more people that have done it before. For first-time moms, I have a lot of friends that are becoming first-time moms now. It's really hard to prepare you for like what that's like. Like no matter how much you read or talk to people, like everyone's experience is really unique. I think everyone's birth experience is really unique. It's hard to wrap your head around. And I think just like having no expectations and in the beginning is like my biggest piece of advice. Whether you're a founder or just a first-time mom, like just see what happens, see how it goes. Like, don't expect it to be a certain way, like get in the groove. I think there's like so much pressure for like babies to sleep this way and eat this way and moms to recover and lose weight. And like, it's not real. Like maybe for some people, but for others, like your journey is going to look different. And so I would say just like be open and easy on yourself. The other piece of advice, I would say like it gets easier, which is what you told me. Like I even feel that I'm in the early stage, but I do think like even every week, like, all right, now he can eat like pieces of food. I don't have to blend everything. So I think like that gets easier. And then like balancing work and feeling confident in like your new self in your company again, like comes with time. I was panicked about that. I was like, literally like, I'm pumping it and I have to do the milk and like, how am I going to, and like, I was feeling a little like uneasy for a bit, but now I'm like, all right, I'm back. I feel like myself. And like, that just takes time. And, and then the last piece I would say is like, honestly, like for those of people that have children and like, are like, I can't do this, like, then like do what you need to do. Like there's no right or wrong or shame. And I think like I've had friends that have started companies or just been like super high powered individuals at companies. And they're like, I want to be a mom. Like, I didn't know that this is what I want to do. And I'm like, then do it, like you don't have to, there's no rules. Like, it's your life, it's your kid, it's your company, it's your career. If there's something that you feel like is right for you, like you should go do it.
And then my last question is, what are 3 actionable tips that you would give to a female founder who's just starting about business?
I would actually say, don't expect your cap table to be like women fueled. That was something that was a shock to me. Like, I set out on this being like, all right, I'm going to get like high powered women to invest. I actually work with a lot of women on like the supply side because I try to support where I can. But my cap table is actually primarily male, which is, I'm always trying to bring more women into it. But I think like there's this kind of ethos of women supporting women. But then when it comes to fundraising, like especially in vice categories, which I'm in, it's a lot harder than you think. So just kind of have realistic expectations around that. Actionable. This is a hard question. You kind of stumped me.
Sorry.
On it. No, it's fine. I would also say like network. So attending events in person and research them, right? Some of them are crap, but like if they're hosted by great people, like go. And then I guess my last one would be like, don't be afraid to like reach out to the craziest person you think will never, ever respond to you, because they might respond. And you'd be surprised of how many people like I've LinkedIn or emailed, and I'm like, there's no way. And they actually respond if you write something thoughtful. So I would say like, think big, but like chip away, right? Like you want to get to the person who's at the top of your industry. Like you can find a way there. And sometimes it's really just like shooting them a DM. Yeah.
But honestly, I couldn't agree with you more. And people who are listening who have been around here for a while know that that's really how I get a lot of my guests that are big and high profile is I simply DM them. And like, I've never
They're just
like
people.
They're just people.
Yeah.
So thank you for saying that.
Yeah.
Jenna Goldring, founder and CEO of the High Confectionary. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you for sharing your story. You are a delight. And I am so excited to see where this goes.
Thank you so much. This was awesome.
I hope that you enjoyed this conversation as much as I enjoyed having it. I think that Jenna Goodring is an incredible founder. I think her story is amazing. And hearing her talk about being a mom and balancing motherhood as well as being a founder and CEO is so realistic and something so many of us can appreciate. So Jenna, thank you so much for sharing your story with us. As always, I want to share my top 5 takeaways from today's conversation. So get out your pen and paper. Number 1, when your side hustle and your job are both pulling you in opposite directions and people are relying on you, it might be time to make a choice. Number 2, even if you fail, you are going to learn in the process. You just have to bet on yourself. Number 3, hire contractors who specialize and are good at the one thing you need them to do. Piece them together and you'll have an awesome team. Number 4, don't be afraid to reach out to the craziest person you think will never, ever respond to you because they just might respond. And number 5, think big, but chip away. Like I said, this is the last interview episode of Dear FoundHer for 2023. Our second year has been a wild ride. We've shared so many incredible stories. I want to thank all of our guests who have joined us and all of you, our listeners and our community, for making this year possible. I'm going to share more in an upcoming solo episode of Dear FoundHer, but this year has far exceeded my expectations, and I cannot wait for you to hear what's next. We'll be back after the holidays with incredible new guests and so much more. Those events you heard me talking about that we piloted here in Chicago this fall, stay tuned because they're coming soon to a city near you. Make sure you click the link in the show notes to be on the list so that you can hear the details when we're ready to share them. Have a great rest of the week and a wonderful holiday. Thank you so much for listening and thank you for being here.